think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a small mistake before my wedding anniversary. But now there's a thick envelope in my mailbox, full of legal documents from my own husband. All I did was see my ex one last time. How could that ruin everything? Evening sunlight slanted through the kitchen as Nate worked beside Maya, their heads bent over math problems and spreadsheets. Tomorrow was our 7th anniversary, but he hadn't even looked up when I reminded him about the vow renewal. He murmured, attention fixed on numbers and our daughter. I felt invisible. Later, in our bedroom, I called Layla and confessed how distant he'd become. She told me to talk to him, that marriages had phases, but her reassurance felt hollow. Then a text lit up my phone. Sebastian here. In town for a conference. Want to catch up? My college ex, the one who once made me feel alive. I should have ignored it, but instead I wrote back. Coffee sounds nice. Nate passed by, tired, talking about work deadlines. I smiled, pretending everything was fine, and saved Sebastian's number under Sam Yoga Studio. Just coffee, I told myself. Just an hour with someone who still remembered me before I disappeared inside my own marriage. Mummy, are you and Daddy going to wear fancy clothes today? Maya asked over her cereal, her dark eyes, so much like Nate's, bright with curiosity. Yes, sweetheart. Remember, today is our special anniversary ceremony. Like a wedding? Sort of like a wedding, I said, braiding her long hair. We're going to say our promises to each other again. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Nate emerged from the kitchen with his travel mug, already checking his phone. I should be home by 5 to get ready, he said, kissing Maya's forehead. The ceremony's at 7, right? Right, I confirmed, but he was already heading toward the door. Love you both, he called over his shoulder, and then he was gone. Maya looked at me with the perceptive gaze that 7-year-olds sometimes possess. Mummy, why do you look sad when Daddy leaves? I'm not sad, baby, just thinking about everything we need to do today. But as I watched Nate's car disappear down our street, I realized Maya had seen something I'd been trying to hide even from myself. I was sad and lonely, and feeling like a stranger in my own life. At 1:30 p.m., I found myself standing in front of my closet, selecting an outfit for coffee with Sebastian. I told myself I was just trying to look presentable, but I chose the blue dress that had always been my favorite, the one that brought out my eyes and fit me perfectly. I applied makeup with more care than I'd taken in months, and spritzed on the perfume Nate had bought me for Christmas, but never seemed to notice when I wore it. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to run errands and meet Layla for coffee. Back by 5 to get ready. F. The lie came so easily it scared me. The Italian restaurant on Maple Street hadn't changed much since college. The same red checkered tablecloths, the same aroma of garlic and basil, the same intimate lighting that had made it a favorite spot for dates. I arrived 5 minutes early and chose a corner booth, my hands trembling slightly as I smoothed my dress. Sebastian walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, and my breath caught. He'd filled out since college, broader shoulders, more confident in his movements, but still with that easy smile that had first attracted me freshman year. His eyes scanned the restaurant until they found mine, and his face lit up with genuine pleasure. Feralith Crane, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. You look absolutely stunning. Marriage clearly agrees with you. It's Feralith Rowe now, I corrected, though his compliment sent warmth through me that I hadn't felt in months. And thank you. You look pretty good yourself. We ordered coffee and fell into easy conversation. Sebastian was working in marketing for a tech company in Seattle, traveling frequently for conferences and client meetings. He was unmarried, though he'd been in a few serious relationships that just didn't work out. I always wondered what happened to you after graduation, he said, leaning forward with the intensity I remembered. You just disappeared. I met Nate, I explained. Things got serious quickly. We married young, had Maya, built a life here. And you're happy? The question hung in the air between us. I should have said yes immediately, enthusiastically. Instead, I found myself hesitating. Most of the time, I finally answered, marriage is complicated, you know. It's not like college when everything felt intense and new. Sebastian nodded knowingly. I remember that intensity. We had something special, didn't we? We did, I admitted, my cheeks warming. You made me feel like the most important person in the room. You were. You still are. The waiter refilled our coffee cups, and Sebastian suggested we order wine instead. For old time's sake, he said with that charming smile. We're celebrating a reunion after all. One glass became two, then three. The afternoon sun slanted through the restaurant windows as we talked about college memories, shared friends, the paths our lives had taken. Sebastian was funny and attentive, asking follow-up questions about my work in HR, remembering details about my family that I'd forgotten I'd ever told him. I can't believe you remember that story about my sister Tessa, I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. I remember everything about you, Fer. That's what you don't understand. You were never forgettable. The way he said my old nickname, the way he looked at me like I was fascinating, it was intoxicating. When was the last time Nate had looked at me like that? When was the last time anyone had made me feel special, desired, worth their complete attention? I should probably go, I said, glancing at my phone. It was already 4:30, and I had several missed calls from Layla. Tonight is our vow renewal ceremony. Right, Sebastian said, his expression shifting. Your anniversary. Are you happy, Feralith? Really happy? The wine had loosened my tongue, and before I could stop myself, I was telling him everything. How distant Nate had become, how he prioritized work and Maya over our relationship, how invisible I felt in my own marriage. You deserve better than that, Sebastian said quietly. You deserve someone who sees you, who appreciates what an amazing woman you are. I used to think Nate saw me that way. Maybe he did once, but people change. Sometimes they stop appreciating what they have. Sebastian reached across the table and covered my hand with his. The contact sent electricity up my arm. Come back to my hotel, he said softly. Just for a little while. We can keep talking, catch up properly. I've missed you so much, Fer. I should have said no. I should have pulled my hand away, paid my portion of the check, and gone home to prepare for my vow renewal ceremony. Instead, I found myself nodding. Just for a little while, I whispered. Sebastian's hotel was downtown, a sleek modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. His room was on the 15th floor, with a view of the city I'd lived in my entire adult life, but rarely saw from this perspective. It's beautiful, I said, standing at the window, with a fresh glass of wine from the minibar. Not as beautiful as you, Sebastian said, coming to stand behind me. I could feel the warmth of his body, smell his cologne, different from what he'd worn in college, more expensive and sophisticated. Sebastian, I started, but I didn't know how to finish the sentence. I know, he said softly. I know you're married. I know tonight is important, but I also know that you're not happy, and that breaks my heart because you deserve everything good in this world. He turned me around to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders. I never stopped thinking about you, you know. About us, about what we could have been. We were so young, I whispered. We were, but what we felt was real. This is real. When he kissed me, it was like being 21 again, like being the center of someone's universe, desired and cherished and important. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt, 8 years of marriage and responsibility, and feeling invisible, melting away. The next thing I clearly remembered was waking up in Sebastian's bed as dawn light crept through the hotel room curtains. My head was pounding from the wine, and it took several seconds for the reality of where I was, what I'd done, to sink in. Sebastian was still asleep beside me, one arm draped across my waist. I carefully extracted myself from his embrace and gathered my scattered clothes, dressing quietly in the bathroom. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Hair mussed, makeup smeared, eyes wide with panic. What had I done? I found a hotel notepad and scribbled a quick message. Had to go. Thank you for yesterday. Please don't contact me again. I left it on the nightstand and slipped out of the room, taking the stairs instead of risking the elevator. The drive home was a blur of self-recrimination and desperate planning. I would shower, get ready for the ceremony, and pretend none of this had happened. It was one mistake, one moment of weakness that no one would ever know about. Nate would never have to know. Maya would never have to know. I could bury this secret and move forward with my marriage, maybe even use the guilt as motivation to try harder with Nate. We could renew our vows tonight and mean it, start fresh, reconnect the way we used to be. But as I pulled into our driveway and saw Nate's car already there, he'd come home early to prepare for our ceremony, the weight of what I'd done hit me like a physical blow. I sat in my car for several minutes, trying to compose myself, trying to become the wife and mother I was supposed to be. When I finally walked through our front door, Nate was in the kitchen with Maya, helping her with an art project while something delicious-smelling simmered on the stove. "Mommy!" Maya ran to hug me, and I held her tight, breathing in her familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and playground dust. "How was coffee with Layla?" Nate asked, looking up from Maya's drawing. "Fine," I said quickly. "Good, we just caught up." He nodded, already turning back to Maya's artwork. "Layla called looking for you around 5. I told her you must have stepped out for errands." My blood ran cold. "She called here?" "Yeah, seemed confused. Said she'd been trying to reach you all afternoon." I forced a laugh. "Oh, you know how she is. Probably wanted to change our plans last minute. I'll call her back later." "Mummy, look what I made for your special day." Maya held up a drawing of our family, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, with "Happy Anniversary" written in careful 7-year-old letters across the top. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, my voice catching. The guilt was overwhelming, a physical weight in my chest. "Are you okay?" Nate asked, finally giving me his full attention. "You look pale." "Just tired. Long day. I should go get ready." In our bedroom, I stripped off the blue dress and shoved it to the back of the closet. In the shower, I scrubbed my skin until it was red, trying to wash away the evidence of my betrayal. But I couldn't wash away the memory of Sebastian's hands, his voice telling me I deserved better, the way he'd looked at me like I was precious. As I applied fresh makeup for our vow renewal ceremony, I caught sight of myself in the mirror and made a promise. This would never happen again. It was one mistake, one moment of weakness, and I would spend the rest of my marriage making up for it. But even as I made that vow to myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed, that I had changed, and that secrets this big had a way of refusing to stay buried. The vow renewal ceremony went off without a hitch. I smiled for photos, recited the words we'd written together, and accepted congratulations from our families and friends. But throughout the evening, I felt like I was watching someone else's life, playing a role in a story that no longer felt like mine. Nate was attentive during the ceremony, holding my hand as we repeated our promises to each other. But I kept thinking about Sebastian's words. "You deserve someone who sees you." Did Nate see me? Or was he just going through the motions, same as I was? "You look beautiful tonight," he whispered during our first dance, and I wanted to feel something. Gratitude, love, connection. Instead, I felt hollow. "Thank you," I whispered back, resting my head on his shoulder and trying to pretend we were the happy couple everyone thought we were. The next few weeks passed in a strange haze of normalcy. I threw myself into work at the HR office, stayed late to avoid the guilt that seemed to permeate our home, and overcompensated with Maya by planning elaborate weekend activities and helping extensively with her homework. But the secret sat inside me like a stone, heavy and uncomfortable. I found myself snapping at Nate over small things, dishes in the sink, his work schedule, his quiet demeanor that I'd once found comforting but now interpreted as indifference. "You're awfully moody lately," he observed one evening, as I aggressively loaded the dishwasher after dinner. "I'm fine," I said curtly. "Just tired." "Maybe you should take a vacation day. You've been working a lot of overtime." "Someone has to. We can't all leave work at 5 sharp every day." Nate looked up from his laptop, confusion flickering across his features. "I thought you wanted me home earlier. You're always complaining that I work too much." "I don't complain. I just forget it. It doesn't matter." But it did matter. Everything mattered and nothing mattered. I was angry at Nate for not being more attentive, angry at myself for what I'd done, and angry at the whole situation for being so complicated. 3 weeks after my afternoon with Sebastian, the first crack in my carefully constructed facade appeared. I was doing laundry when Nate appeared in the doorway of our bedroom, holding something small and silver in his palm. "Where did this come from?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. It was an earring, a delicate silver hoop that wasn't mine. My heart stopped. It must have fallen out when I was getting dressed in Sebastian's hotel room, got entangled in my clothes somehow. "I have no idea," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maybe it's Maya's, from her dress-up box. It's real silver ferrolith, and Maya doesn't have pierced ears." "Then I don't know. Maybe it was in the pocket of something from the dry cleaner. You know how they sometimes mix up orders." Nate studied my face for a long moment, and I forced myself to meet his gaze. Finally, he pocketed the earring. "Maybe," he said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe me. That night, I lay awake listening to Nate's breathing, wondering if he was really asleep or just pretending, the way I was. The earring felt like a ticking time bomb. How long before he started asking more questions I couldn't answer? At work, I found myself distracted, making small mistakes that my supervisor noticed. During lunch breaks, I avoided my usual group of colleagues, afraid that somehow my guilt was visible on my face. But gossip travels fast in small offices, and I began to notice whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. "Everything okay, Ferrolith?" My cubicle neighbor, Janet, asked one afternoon. "You seem different lately." "Different how?" "I don't know. Distracted? And you've been staying so late. Tom from security mentioned he's had to let you out after hours several times this month." "I'm just trying to get ahead on some projects," I said quickly. But Janet's observation made me realize how my behavior had changed. I was staying late not because of work, but because going home meant facing Nate and Maya and the weight of my deception. The situation at home continued to deteriorate. Maya, sensitive to tension the way children often are, began asking questions. "Why do you and Daddy whisper fight now?" she asked one morning over breakfast. "We don't whisper fight, sweetheart. Adults just discuss things sometimes." "Grandma Elaine says adults who love each other talk nice, not whisper angry." Nate's mother had been coming by more often lately, ostensibly to help with Maya, but I suspected also to observe the state of our marriage. Elaine had always been polite to me, but I sensed a new coolness in her interactions, a watchfulness that made me uncomfortable. "Your grandmother says a lot of things," I replied, immediately regretting the sharp tone. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Are you mad at me, Mommy?" "No, baby, I'm not mad at you. I'm sorry. Mommy's just tired." But I was mad. At myself. At the situation. At Nate for his growing suspicion. At everyone and everything that made me feel trapped and guilty and defensive. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening, 6 weeks after my encounter with Sebastian. I was preparing dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My blood ran cold when I read it. "I can't stop thinking about our afternoon together." I know you said not to contact you, but I'm going to be in town again next month. Can we meet? It was Sebastian. I'd blocked his original number, but he'd found another way to reach me. I quickly deleted the message, but not before Nate appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Who was that?" he asked casually, but I caught the sharp attention in his eyes. "Work," I lied. "Someone asking about their vacation request." "At 7 p.m. on a Thursday. You know how people are. They think HR is available 24/7. Nate nodded slowly, but I saw him glance at my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. Later that evening, when I got up to use the bathroom, I noticed the glow of his phone screen in the dark bedroom. Was he checking my messages? Had he seen Sebastian's text before I deleted it? Paranoia began to eat at me. I changed my phone passcode and started keeping it with me at all times. I cleared my browser history obsessively and avoided any behavior that might seem suspicious. But the more careful I became, the more suspicious I probably appeared. My sister Tessa noticed the change when she came for Sunday dinner. "You seem on edge," she observed as we cleaned up in the kitchen while Nate and Maya played in the backyard. "I'm fine, just work stress." "Is everything okay with you and Nate? You two barely spoke during dinner." "We're fine, Tessa. Not every couple needs to chatter constantly." She raised an eyebrow. "Okay, but you know you can talk to me if something's wrong, right? I mean, if you need someone to listen." "There's nothing to talk about," I said firmly. "Everything is fine." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Nothing was fine. My marriage felt like a house of cards, and I was terrified that any wrong move would bring it all crashing down. The next morning, I found Nate in his study before work, not reading financial reports as usual, but looking at something on his phone with intense concentration. When he saw me, he quickly closed the screen. "Morning," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Coffee's ready." "Thanks. What were you looking at?" "Just news. Nothing important." But the way he avoided my eyes suggested otherwise. As he gathered his things for work, I noticed him slip his phone into his pocket with more care than usual. And when he kissed my cheek goodbye, it felt perfunctory, distant. After he left, I sat at our kitchen table with my coffee, staring out at the backyard, where Maya's swing set stood empty in the morning light. Everything looked the same as it had 2 months ago, but nothing felt the same. The secret I'd thought I could bury was poisoning everything it touched, and I was starting to realize that some mistakes are too big to hide forever. My phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. "I know you saw my text yesterday. I'm not going away, Fur. What we had was too special to ignore." This time, I turned off my phone entirely and shoved it in a drawer. But I had the sinking feeling that Sebastian, and the truth, wouldn't be so easily silenced. The family dinner at my parents' house the following Sunday was supposed to be a celebration of my father's birthday, but it quickly became an interrogation. I could feel the weight of everyone's attention as soon as Nate, Maya, and I walked through the front door. My father, Martin, embraced me with his usual warmth, but I caught the concerned look he exchanged with my mother over my head. Tessa was already there with her boyfriend, and she watched me with the sharp attention of someone who suspected secrets. "Ferelith looks tired," my mother announced to the room, as if I weren't standing right there. "Are you getting enough sleep, honey?" "I'm fine, Mum, just busy with work." "Maybe too busy," Nate said quietly, settling Maya at the children's table with her cousins. "She's been staying late at the office almost every night." The way he said it, with a subtle emphasis that suggested he didn't entirely believe my work excuses, made my stomach clench. I forced a laugh. Someone has to pay the bills while Nate's buried in his spreadsheets. It was meant to be a light joke, but it came out sharper than I intended. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. "Well," my mother said brightly, "let's eat before everything gets cold." During dinner, I found myself overcompensating, talking too much and too loudly about inconsequential things, Maya's school projects, office gossip, anything to fill the awkward silences that seemed to follow my every comment. But the more I talked, the more withdrawn Nate became, answering direct questions with polite monosyllables. "Nate, how's work going?" my father asked, clearly trying to draw him into conversation. "Fine. Busy season coming up." "The Morrison account still giving you trouble?" "We're working through it." I jumped in, unable to bear his taciturn responses. Nate's always working on something. He barely looks up from his laptop most evenings. I sometimes wonder if he'd notice if Maya and I disappeared entirely. The joke fell flat. Maya looked up from her plate with worried eyes, and Nate's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm sure Nate's just dedicated to providing for his family," my mother said diplomatically. "Oh, he's dedicated to something," I muttered, then immediately regretted it when I saw the hurt flash across Nate's face. After dinner, while the men watched football and Maya played with her cousins, Tessa cornered me in the kitchen. "Okay, what's really going on?" she demanded, drying dishes with aggressive efficiency. "Nothing's going on. Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because you're acting weird, Feralith. You're defensive and snappy, and you just threw your husband under the bus in front of the whole family." "I didn't throw him under the bus, things have been tense lately." "Tense how? Is Nate having an affair?" The question hit me like a slap. "What? No, of course not. Nate would never—" "Then what? Because something is clearly wrong, and if you don't talk to someone, it's going to get worse." I wanted to confide in her. The words were right there, begging to be spoken, but I couldn't admit what I'd done, not even to my sister. "Marriage is hard sometimes," I said instead. "We're just going through a rough patch." Tessa studied my face with the penetrating gaze that had made her an excellent paralegal. "Fer, if there's something you need to tell someone—" "There's nothing to tell," I interrupted. "Can we please just drop it?" The ride home was silent except for Maya's chatter from the back seat about her cousins and the games they'd played. Nate stared straight ahead at the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel with unnecessary force. "You were quiet tonight," I said, trying to break the tension. "Was I?" "Very. It was almost rude." I thought I was just being my usual spreadsheet-obsessed self. The comment stung, because it was a direct quote from my dinner remarks. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "You meant exactly what you said. The question is why you felt the need to say it in front of your family." I didn't have a good answer for that, so I said nothing. The rest of the drive passed in uncomfortable silence. At work the next week, my carefully maintained professional facade began to crack. I snapped at a colleague who asked about processing a routine form, forgot about a scheduled meeting with my supervisor, and made an error in payroll calculations that resulted in several angry phone calls. "Feralith, can I see you in my office?" my boss, Sandra, asked on Wednesday afternoon. I followed her into her glass-walled office, my palms sweating. "Is everything all right at home?" she asked without preamble. "Your work has been inconsistent lately, and several people have mentioned that you seem distracted." "I'm fine, just some family stress. It won't happen again." "I hope not. You're usually one of our most reliable employees, but I can't have mistakes in payroll. That affects everyone." "I understand. I'll be more careful." But being more careful at work meant I had less energy to maintain the pretense at home. I found myself picking fights with Nate over increasingly trivial things: the way he loaded the dishwasher, his habit of checking his phone during dinner, his failure to notice when I changed my hair. "What do you want from me, Feralith?" he finally asked after I criticized him for not complimenting my new blouse. "Nothing I do seems to be right anymore." "I want you to notice me," I said, the words coming out more desperate than I intended. "I want you to see me as more than just Maya's mother or the person who handles the household logistics." "I do see you." "No, you don't. You see through me. I could disappear tomorrow and you'd probably be relieved." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer?" Nate was quiet for a long moment. When was the last time you gave me an honest answer about your day? The question hung between us like a challenge. I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again. Because he was right, I hadn't been honest about anything in months. I don't know what you mean, I said finally. Don't you? There was something in his tone that made my blood run cold. A certainty, as if he knew something I didn't realize he knew. Nate, if you have something to say... Daddy, Mommy, why are you arguing again? Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, her favorite stuffed animal clutched against her chest. We're not arguing, sweetheart, Nate said immediately, his voice gentle. We're just talking. It sounds like arguing. Mrs. Peterson at school says when grown-ups talk loud and angry, that's arguing. I knelt down to Maya's level, guilt washing over me. I'm sorry if we scared you, baby. Sometimes grown-ups disagree about things, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other. But even as I said the words, I wondered if they were true. Did Nate and I still love each other? Or were we just going through the motions for Maya's sake? That night, I lay awake listening to Nate's breathing and wondering what he knew, what he suspected, and how much longer I could keep pretending that everything was normal. The secret felt like a living thing inside me, growing larger and more demanding every day. My phone, charging on the nightstand, buzzed with a text message. I grabbed it quickly, hoping not to wake Nate, and my heart stopped when I saw Sebastian's name on the screen. I'll be in town next weekend. We need to talk. I deleted the message immediately, but when I looked up, Nate was watching me in the darkness. Work emergency? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Just spam. Wrong number. At midnight? You know how it is. People don't pay attention to time zones. Nate didn't respond, but I could feel his eyes on me in the dark. When I finally fell asleep hours later, I dreamed of drowning in secrets, of trying to swim to the surface while invisible hands pulled me down into the depths. The next morning, I found an envelope on the kitchen table addressed to me in Nate's precise handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a phone number and a name. Margaret Chen, attorney at law. What is this? I asked when Nate came downstairs, already dressed for work. I think you know what it is. I have no idea what you're talking about. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Disappointment so profound it was almost pity. When you're ready to tell me the truth, he said quietly, I'll be ready to listen, but I won't keep pretending that everything is fine when we both know it isn't. He kissed Maya goodbye, nodded to me, and left for work. I stood in our kitchen, holding the lawyer's business card, and realized that my carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around me. The envelope came on a Tuesday morning, heavy with finality. Inside were the papers that ended my marriage, Nate's petition for separation, custody requests, and a mountain of evidence proving everything I'd tried to hide. Screenshots, receipts, hotel records, even my missing earring. He'd known for weeks. When Layla called, her voice was sharp with betrayal. She'd told Nate's lawyer the truth, and just like that, I'd lost her too. The mediation was brutal. Nate sat across from me, silent but resolute, while his lawyer recited every lie I'd told. 3 hours later, I'd signed away my marriage, my home, and most of my time with Maya. My father came that evening, tired and disappointed. I told him I'd made one mistake, but he corrected me. It wasn't one, it was a pattern. Lies stacked so high they crushed everything underneath. That night, I packed Maya's things, found her journal, and read her words. Mommy and Daddy are getting divorced because Mommy lied. I held it to my chest and cried until morning, finally understanding that I hadn't just broken my marriage, I'd broken my family. 6 months later, I sat in my small apartment reading the final custody order. Supervised visits were over, but Nate kept primary custody. I'd see Maya every other weekend and one night a week, more than I feared, less than I hoped. The place was simple, furnished from discount stores, with a small purple room waiting for her brief stays. The divorce was finalized, our house sold, my career reduced, and my reputation scarred. My family spoke to me again, though the warmth was gone. Maya was polite but distant, thriving with Nate and his new partner, while I tried to rebuild a life from the wreckage. Even my friends kept their distance. Trust once broken was hard to regain. I worked, went to therapy, and faced each day with quiet remorse. One evening, I found a letter from Maya, just a crayon drawing of two stick figures under a rainbow with, "I love you, Mommy." I pressed it to my chest and cried, realizing that even after everything, her love still existed. It wasn't redemption, but it was reason enough to keep trying. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.